Thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for being here. I also would like to recognize the great work of your staff, especially Mr. Prentice and Mr. Nee as well. One program I think is very effective is the Hokies doing a lot of work across the city. I know, unfortunately, they're only there for a certain period of time, certain months. How can we? The program is working so well, but how can we expand it to include it for a longer period of time?
Sure. So we've actually started that. The seasonal hokey is for a window, 5-month window. Right now you have a gentleman named Sean McColgan who does great work for you on Broadway and Preble and Andrews Square. Those months where we don't have the seasonal, actually under the leadership of Danny Nee and Norman Parks, we actually take a MEO, motor equipment operator, or a heavy motor equipment operator who is not filling a different role, and they're working as a hokey. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve Norton, and sometimes Chris Lynch, who are able to do that work on your stretches. And also we just transferred over a couple more individuals. Eric Mello's another one who was able to pick up that task. So we've started that work in every district and in every neighborhood where that hokey system doesn't just come with a seasonal tag. Obviously in the winter we have to wear multiple hats, and priorities kind of get back to streets, making streets safe, and some other work. But we're trying to expand that program now where it doesn't just have a seasonal name to it, and a seasonal individual. It has a permanent role and task.
And I do enjoy when I'm in the neighborhoods talking to them, and they're very professional and hardworking. Did have an opportunity to work with Eric Prentice as well. We're trying to get. There's a hokey now in Chinatown that's doing a lot of work, doing some great work there. There's one street in particular, Oxford Street, I am concerned with. I know Public Works is going to work harder and do a better job on Oxford Street. Are there certain streets in Boston that don't get cleaned because of how narrow they are? No,
and we do put a lot of time and attention to places like Oxford Place. The better job is a consistent job that's done. What we're doing is sending code enforcement to help us out. 4 years ago, this body gave us code enforcement. They were underneath ISD's purview and responsibility. In that time, we've been able to better deploy the 17 officers, men and women, of code enforcement. I think you might have talked to Director Steve Tankel and some others. Oxford Place is going to become something that's part of, quote, Steve's morning initiatives. That can be areas of East Boston or South Boston, if the case may be. And at this place, Oxford Place, it's become a dumping ground, as you know. The grocery store on Oxford Street does a really good job of power washing their stretch. It's that Oxford Place has become a problem, and it's less the size of it; it's more the nature of those illegal dumpings that occur. But it's been on our radar. It's now on our radar with a code enforcement presence, so we can kind of better manage what we show up to, rather than it being, as I think you've seen, a large-scale dumping site.
Yeah, I'm on Oxford Street in Oxford Place at least once a week. Oxford Street does need to be cleaned better. Oxford Place has a lot of issues that the water and sewer could be helpful on as well. A lot of sewage backup on Oxford Place. But having a better Public Works presence on Oxford Street and Oxford Place would be helpful. I was down there last week and was just in Oxford Place was just in terrible shape. There were needles everywhere. There was trash everywhere. And there were young people playing in that area on that street. So I communicated many times with your staff. But over the summer, I want to make sure that that's a top priority for Public Works as well. Both Oxford Street and Oxford Place, and also Chinatown in general. It's so tiny, but there's a lot of restaurants around. We may need to do PSAs with restaurant owners on how to take out the trash and when trash is going to be picked up. Some of those issues, if I could work with your staff on, but I think it's critical. There's a rodent problem over there as well. There's just a lot of quality of life issues that need to be addressed. Is this something you're willing to work with me on?
Most certainly, yeah, most certainly.
As it relates to downtown crossing, I know there's going to be some money in the budget for design improvements, Washington Street, Summer Street, Winter Street intersections. Any updates on that? It's probably the busiest area in the city. There's millions of tourists that come to that area, Freedom Trail every day. We just need to make sure it's in good shape. Any updates?
Yep, so Katie and her team have had a number of conversations with the downtown crossing bid. And we are prioritizing essentially putting together a design for that Washington winter-summer intersection, ideally over the course of this year, as well as looking at School Street, to your point, sort of the area where the Freedom Trail comes down that has a number of areaway issues. And the idea is that we'll be able to take that design and reconnect with the bid team and understand, is this something that the city can do itself, the city can do in collaboration with the bid, or have the bid be able to participate in some other way?
There was a barrel taken off the corner of L Street and Broadway next to Starbucks, if we can follow up on that one.
Okay.
I got an email on it yesterday. Any updates on the upcoming meeting on stray voltage? I know there probably needs to be some type of long-term study on what the city can and what the city can't do, including PSA announcements, but I know we're going to have a formal hearing on that, but any guidance that you guys want to accomplish at that meeting?
So the street lighting team in the past has looked at the stray voltage issue, and I think what we'll be able to talk through at the session on Friday is looking at some of those ideas that have come up before in terms of either outreach or investment or sort of a comprehensive study of our street lighting assets. So with John Yetman and Joe Sullivan and Mike Donahue, we'll be able to go through those options with you.
Okay. And, both of those gentlemen have done a good job of staying in contact with me in my office, and they are helpful. I got a call recently from the south end, Allen Rohan Square.
Yep.
It's part of Public Works. I think the park is overgrown. There's some vandalism throughout the area. Is this something you could follow up on?
Yep, we'll do that.
Then finally, I'd like to take a look at the workforce of your department, and I noticed 3% of the employees are Asian. Is that where you guys want to be?
Certainly we want our entire department to reflect the diversity of the city, and it's a big priority of our HR team led by Trish Casey. So we're happy to work with you. If there's outreach efforts that you think we should be engaged in, we're more than willing to do that.
Yeah, I think we need to increase it more than 3%.
Yep. I agree. I think that part of what we are very interested in doing is figure out how we actually recruit from the entirety of the city, so that our entire department really reflects our city and draws from the strengths of our entire resident population.
How are you going to do that?
So that is a focus of the city as a whole through our Chief Diversity Officer, as well as the work of our HR team led by Trish Casey. So a lot of it has to do with how we sort of promote the work that the job opportunities we have in the city of Boston through platforms like the Boston Career Center, which is the online portal. Part of it has to do with how we are present at career fairs, and separate from our own work in sort of recruiting our staff, there's also a lot of work that Ann, among others, has done to think about how we actually recruit people to respond to some of the RFP opportunities, the contractual opportunities that this department has, again, so that we can really make sure that the entirety of the city really can participate.
And if I could help out on that effort, please let me know. We certainly have a growing population, Asian population in the city, including Vietnamese in Dorchester and Chinese in Alston and Brighton as well, including Chinatown. So I think it's important to try to do a better job of bringing more Asians on board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up. I know you highlighted it earlier. You were upgrading over 900 ramps to ADA compliance. How many more are left that you need to do?
Okay, so about 60% of the 25,000 are done. Okay, so about 40% of that left. About 10,000 ramps to go.
I noticed a lot when developers would be doing construction project that it seems like they'd almost take a little bit of the sidewalk for their own property, for their own development, and it's limiting the access for the elderly, for the disabled. At times, they can't walk the sidewalk if there's a utility pole there. Have you noticed that as well?
Certainly that's something which we review through the Public Improvement Commission to make sure that we maintain a clear path of travel for everybody. If there's some specific locations, we're very happy to go out there and have conversations with the utility company if it seems like their pole is encroaching on the appropriate sort of width of sidewalk.
Yeah, and some of the ramps are not inside the crosswalk itself. They're off to the side. So I notice elderly people and those in wheelchairs walking down the ramp and then going down the street a little bit into the crosswalk, crossing the street, and then moving off to the crosswalk, out of the crosswalk, to the ramp. It's not in the same area. It's not in the same system. How much effort would it take to make sure that that's in compliance?
I think what you're identifying are places where we've fixed the ramp before we've resurfaced the street, so the crosswalk hasn't necessarily been restriped, and we are looking to make sure that our resurfacing program and our sidewalk and ramp program are synced. It's been a big focus of our construction management division over the last year.
Is there a lot of those cases throughout the city?
There are some, and we're certainly working back through them. If there's some that particularly rise to the top for you, though, just let us know.
I noticed that a lot in South Boston, a lot in the South End. It's a public safety hazard, in my opinion, for the elderly and for the disabled. Pedestrian safety, I think, is the #1 issue in the city. And at times, our streets are unsafe for the elderly to cross. I see mothers with little kids trying to cross the streets, and cars are speeding by them. I think we need to do a better job making sure that pedestrian access is the most important part of that.
Absolutely.
How safe are the bike lanes making it for residents to cross the street as well? I noticed there's a new bike lane in Chinatown on the main street there. Does that make it safer for pedestrians to cross the street? Is it safer for the bikes driving by?
So our design team has spent a tremendous amount of time working with Becca Wolfson from the Boston Cyclists Union, among others, to think about how we improve safety for everybody, whether you're driving or you're walking or you're riding a bike. The Neelan Street bike lane that you reference, it certainly is sort of a protected bike lane and has a set of flex posts in other sections of it. That's the sort of thing which gives cyclists a degree of separation from the flow of cars, which can make the road more comfortable for both people who are driving and people who are biking. And it can give a little greater visibility to sort of both pedestrians and cyclists. So we are certainly very focused on making sort of those sorts of streetscape investments that make it safer for everybody, particularly those who are most vulnerable road users, as you mentioned, pedestrians and cyclists.
Did you receive any feedback at all from the businesses in Chinatown about it?
We did. We certainly got some feedback in advance about the need to make safety improvements along Neelan Street, and some feedback as well from some of the retailers about how we actually make sure that there's some good curb access for parking for customers in the area.
Were they happy with the results?
So I think that they are eager for us to figure out if there's some additional places we can find parking within Chinatown. And so we're sort of interested in working with them to find those places, whether that is sort of off of Neelan Street or elsewhere in the neighborhood.
Okay. I know they sent me a bunch of signatures that they were opposed to it. Yeah. It hurt their business in that area. What year was that done?
We did that at the end of last year.
Last year, okay. And my final question is, I know the Public Works employees do an excellent job. I also know you contract a lot of the services out, snow removal. Down the road, can we consider hiring more full-time employees? I'd rather the work being done by city employees. They're dedicated, they're hardworking, they're professional, they know the neighborhood, they love the city. Why do we have to contract so much services out?
So I think I wholeheartedly agree. I think we all agree with that. On this micro of it, maintaining and retaining CDL drivers is difficult. Working for the city provides a lot of benefits. Good pay, good benefits. The marketplace, what it is today, they can find it elsewhere as well. For just a bit more money. We have a tough time maintaining CDL drivers, but we post for CDL, what we call heavy motor equipment operators. We post, Trish Casey's working every 2 months to get a brand new list. The large part of that is in this city, on a full call out for snow, we have about 850 pieces of equipment. That's from anything from a small pickup truck with a spreader to a backhoe to a bobcat to a large spreader, which is that CDL piece, front end loaders. To ever get to 100% would be probably something that this city could probably never do, just the volume of asset procurement, buying those pieces of equipment, and then FTEs to cover those seats. It's probably 2 to 3 employees per truck, if you think about throughout a storm, sick time, other things that would have to deal with. I think we've done a better job in hosting a lot of the small snow events, as I mentioned earlier, that small ice work that used to be contracted out. We are more ready and more capable, knock on wood, it's Mother Nature, to handle those internally with our own folks, paying our own folks city money to handle those tasks. Unfortunately, on those named storms, those blizzards, we need so much equipment. Most times our contractors have trouble getting to that large number, but it's always something that we work towards. It's an equipment piece and a large scale, I think, FTE piece and just retention of talent.
Then just one final observation. Big departments like Public Works, the fire department, the police department, when there's a opening for the head department, I always think that the new commissioner should come from the ranks. They know the city. We have the most talented city workforce probably in the country. I just don't think we ever need to go outside of the city to bring in someone that doesn't know the city, doesn't know the department, whether it's the Public Works, whether it's the fire department or the police department. Let's hire from within, and these people know how to run the department. And it's just my opinion, it's not necessary to bring outsiders in to run a major city department. Any comments or thoughts about that?
I think we are very fortunate to have a very, very strong team within the Public Works Department. And a lot of that comes, as Mike referenced before, folks know the streets, they know constituents, they care deeply about what's happening in our neighborhoods. And so that is the sort of skill and the sort of passion and sort of experience that is hard to bring unless you've lived it in the past. So I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you.